Fox News host says the only people up in arms about Musk and Trump's cuts are unionized government bureaucrats. And I 1000% agree with that sentiment. Those are the only people upset, the bureaucrats, the administrative state, the deep state. Those are the only ones in the mainstream media because they're getting kickbacks from the money laundering and things like that as well. But aside from that, normal average Americans could care less. We actually want this. We want to cut back government. We wanted Trump to come in with that hammer and bust up government. This is what we voted for. Again, these are the only people that are against these things. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to play a couple of clips. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from Liberty Daily by way of DCNF, Daily Caller News Foundation. And they report that Fox and Friends weekend host Charlie Hurt said Thursday that protests against the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, by government bureaucrats would not turn American voters against President Donald Trump. Of course not. This is what we voted for. That's what they failed to understand. After the Trump administration began implementing an executive order to reevaluate and realign foreign aid spending, Democratic members of Congress joined protests outside the headquarters of the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, and the Treasury Department Tuesday after DOGE co-chairman Elon Musk announced plans to shutter USAID. Hurt took aim at the protests, which he said consists of people who were 3 blocks away. All right, so let's get to the clip here. Here we go.
Rhetoric is dangerous. You could say that, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, you might want to think about that if you were Ed Markey. And it's remarkable whenever we see one of these protests. We've seen a couple this week with Ed Markey. We've seen one with Chuck Schumer and a couple of others. And they are trying to get millions or at least thousands of people to march in the streets in Washington, D.C. The problem is they just come like 3 blocks from somewhere else in Washington, D.C. Those are the only people who care about these cuts to that DOGE is trying to make to these government programs. The only people who are up in arms about it are government bureaucrats, often unionized government bureaucrats. There's no movement in the rest of the country among taxpayers because taxpayers understand what is obvious and becomes more obvious the more of these stories that come out. And that is that the government spends wildly on things that have nothing to do in terms of improving their lives.
I think Senator Markey is particularly upset because he's one of the authors of the original Green New Deal along with AOC. And the Green New Deal is being taken to pieces by Musk. And Senator Markey's not happy about that. Let me move on. Listen to what White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt had to say about the Democrats' rhetoric. Watch this.
Chris Van Hollen says we have to fight this in the Congress. We have to fight this in the streets. So what now?
And may I just point out, if you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable. And for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
Right. We see it time and time again. It's okay for the left to threaten and say these things, but if someone says something and it's not even close, they call it a dog whistle. They call it that Republicans are calling for violence and all this other bull crap, but they outright say these things. And the mainstream media don't hold them accountable for that. Remember when Trump was in office, Maxine Waters came out and was like, we need to get in their face. We need to go to where they live. We need to go to where they eat and all these other things and threaten them and all these. She literally told people to threaten these government officials. So it's okay for the left to do this. But even if a Republican says something that's not even close to that, they get chastised for it. It's just wrong.
You could make the case that Trump hatred was a factor in the last election. It didn't work. And I think you could make the case that Musk hatred, which seems to be predominant now, won't
Right.
work either for the Democrats. What do you say?
Right. Yeah. The Democrat Party is the party of hate. They are the actual party of hate.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right about that. And I think Caroline Levitt is exactly right about it. You know, that kind of rhetoric, there is no place for it. It is, but you know, on a political field, it's even more, I think it's even more damaging to them because it sounds so discordant with what most people see with their own eyes, which is Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing a lot of really good common sense things, doing things trying to cut spending, trying to make government more efficient and more answerable to the innocent taxpayer. And then you have these screeching lawmakers who are coming out trying to get people to fill the streets and protest. And it just doesn't make sense. And it's a reminder that, you know, President Trump is always playing multiple sort of board games at once. Obviously, he cares about the policies, and there's a lot to fix in terms of the policies, but he's also playing that PR game, and he's winning it. And if you saw that event yesterday at the White House where he signed the bill banning men from participating in women's sports, and you look at the prayer breakfast this morning in the Capitol, Donald Trump is talking to giving big speeches to a big audience of America. And people like Ed Markey and these other Democrats, Chris Van Hollen, they're just screeching to a smaller and smaller crowd.
Yeah.
And they
are the minority. The Democrats are the minority. Their progressive ideals are the minority. This is why almost 80% of the American people are for Trump taking men out of women's sports. It's common sense. The Republican Party is the party of common sense.
quite frankly, Stuart, kind of unhinged.
They do on occasion, that's true. Charlie, thanks for joining us. See you again real soon.
All right, so let's check out another clip here. This is from Fox News as well. I'm going to play this clip here.
It sounds like you're going to wind down USAID.
It sounds like it. I mean, I think so. Yeah.
So when that happens, which part of the government?
Well, I could see Marco Rubio being in charge, State Department, because they're giving money to. I mean, some of the money is well spent, I guess, but much of it is really fraudulent.
Let's bring in Catherine O'Neill Gillihan. Catherine, you used to work for USAID. Did you see fraud and waste when you were working there?
Thank you so much, Stuart. Absolutely. I mean, I also worked at the State Department for 3 years before USAID. And as a State Department official, we would try to keep USAID in line with the Secretary of State, because technically the USAID responds to the Secretary of State. And it was very difficult. There was no traceability, no accountability, and it was really hard for us to do our jobs at the State Department to keep everything in line with the Secretary.
Point to some fraud and waste for me. Give me an example.
Listen to this.
Oh, gosh. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I think I read recently that they were funding a Sesame Street program in Peru. I mean, these programs have gotten so out of control. And USAID was created in 1961 by President Kennedy under executive order. And his idea for the agency would be housed under this Department of State. So President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio are totally within their right to bring USAID back under the Department of State. It's in with the original mandate.
Really, right. What they're doing is trying to bring some accountability for the money that we're spreading around the world, $40 billion a year. I mean, what we want is accountability and some investigation of where that money actually went. And is it in America's interest to spend money like that in that way?
Absolutely. So if you're a CEO of a large company and you have a department that's out there spending money that's not in alignment with your mission, not matching up with your bottom line, the natural inclination is to bring that department into review and perhaps
common sense.
So Donald Trump, as the CEO of the United States of America, has deputized Elon Musk, who I see as the de facto controller of America, is reviewing every penny that's going out in the door. And that is totally within his right. Article 2 of the Constitution gives the president that right, called the vesting clause, to review the powers of this government and to make sure that all of the spending is aligned with our interests.
And that's why the Democrats are in an uproar, because there's nothing they can do about it. There's absolutely nothing they can do about it because everything that Trump is doing is legal. It was originally, USAID was originally created with an executive order by Kennedy. So that means Trump has every right to do what he want to do with USAID. And that's why they're up in the uproar. That's why they're protesting. A handful of Democrats over there in Washington are up in arms because legally they can't really do anything about it. But I think it's a good thing ultimately. Our government need to be overhauled. It need to be given back to the people, and the bureaucratic state need to cease to exist. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.